The murmur of keyboards and low conversation filled the company's reception area until a sudden shout shattered the air. "If anyone here manages to translate this, I'll give you my entire salary," declared Victor Almeida, his voice booming, his hand holding a set of documents high above his head. His lips curled into a smirk as he slowly scanned the faces gathered around. A ripple of laughter rolled through the room, the kind that follows a boss's arrogant display. Marketing staff leaned against the counter, grinning. Two interns exchanged amused glances. Near the door to the corridor, Sofia Santos, wearing her navy cleaning uniform and rubber gloves, froze mid-step. She had been pushing a mop bucket toward the restroom. She didn't laugh. She just stood there listening in silence as she had done countless times over the past 2 years. The whole situation had begun hours earlier, when a courier had delivered a thick envelope from Hungary directly to Victor. He'd ripped it open with the impatience of a man expecting a generic business proposal. Instead, his expression had turned sour. "This looks like alien code," he'd muttered, tossing the papers onto his desk. His secretary, Laura, had stepped forward to examine them. "It seems to be Hungarian, sir. There are official seals here, and amounts listed in euros." "In euros? Must be some kind of scam." Victor had laughed sharply. "Who in Brazil even speaks Hungarian? Straight to the trash." But Laura had pointed to a bold date in the header. "It says today, before 6 p.m. If it's official and we miss the deadline—" "Fine," he'd interrupted, waving her off. "Call any translator, pay whatever it takes. This can't be difficult." It had been more difficult than he imagined. One by one, translation agencies refused the work. Not enough time. No legal Hungarian specialists available on short notice. By mid-afternoon, Victor's mood had shifted from bored irritation to a taut, red-faced frustration. "It's nearly 3 o'clock, he bellowed, slamming his fist on the counter. "We're in a city of millions and no one speaks Hungarian. I'll pay 45,000 rees to whoever translates this garbage." More laughter filled the reception. "For that kind of money, I'd learn any language in half an hour," joked Paolo from sales, earning another round of chuckles. It was then that Sofia, still half hidden near the restroom door, stepped forward. She walked with a calm, steady pace toward the cluster of staff. The noise died down. People turned to watch, some with smirks, others with raised eyebrows. "Mr. Almeida," she said evenly, "may I help with the translation?" Victor blinked as though he hadn't heard correctly. Then a laugh burst out of him. You speak Hungarian?" "Yes, sir," she replied, her voice firm. "I can translate those documents." The reception exploded in laughter again, sharper this time. "The cleaning lady's a polyglot now?" scoffed one of the analysts. Laura shifted in her seat, clearly wanting to intervene but hesitating. Even she seemed unsure. Victor waved the papers at her mockingly. "All right, genius. Let's see what you can do." Sofia took the documents carefully, her eyes moving swiftly across the dense lines of text. As she read, her face changed, not with strain, but with something that looked like recognition. She drew a slow breath and began. "Mr. Victor Almeida," she read aloud in a clear tone, "we write to inform you of the assets left by Mr. Henrique Almeida." A thick silence fell over the reception. The laughter stopped. Victor's eyes widened. "You're actually reading that?" "Yes, sir. It's a legal notice. Your uncle Henrique has passed away in Budapest. You have been identified as the sole heir to an estate valued at 15 million euros. But you must confirm receipt before 6 p.m. today." Victor's color drained. He snatched the papers back and skimmed them with trembling hands. His voice came out in a near whisper. "How do you know Hungarian?" "I taught Eastern European languages at the University of São Paulo for 15 years, Sofia said. "Before that, I worked as a translator at the Hungarian consulate." The weight of her words pressed into the air. Laura's hand covered her mouth. Paolo's grin vanished. An accountant dropped the file she had been holding. Victor looked at her as though seeing her for the first time. And in that moment, the balance in the room shifted. Victor kept staring at Sofia as if a ghost had walked out of a wall. The reception held its breath. He cleared his throat and spoke, his voice lower now. "Read the first paragraph again," he said. Sofia kept her gaze on the page, and read the paragraph again, steady and precise. When she finished, she lifted her eyes. "There's a deadline," she said. "Today, 6 p.m. They need written acknowledgement and an initial response." Laura stepped closer, voice hushed. "Can you really handle this?" she asked, not unkindly. Sophia nodded. "I can translate it in full and write the legal response they expect," she said. "But I will need a computer, internet access, and a quiet room." She paused and added, "and the freedom to work without interruption." Paolo, from sales, tried to revive the old tone with a half-laugh. "Come on," he said. How are you qualified for this?" Sophia didn't flinch. "I taught Hungarian, Russian, and Romanian at the University of São Paulo for 15 years, she said. "Before that, I served as a translator at the Hungarian consulate. I changed jobs because I reported a diploma-selling scheme that involved senior staff. I was dismissed, blacklisted, and needed a stable contract and health insurance. This was the first place that offered both." The silence shifted from shock to discomfort. Victor lowered the papers as if they weighed more now. "You're telling me," he said, "that for 2 years you've been cleaning our offices while you could have handled international correspondence?" Sophia answered without apology. "I'm telling you I did what I had to do for my family," she said. "I have a daughter in treatment. The health plan kept us afloat." Laura spoke again carefully. "What would you need right now to get started?" she asked. Sophia inhaled, as if releasing years of swallowed words. "A meeting room with a door," she said. "A workstation, silence, and the guarantee that I make the final call on phrasing and terminology. This is a legal notice. We cannot risk mistranslation." Victor turned toward Laura. "Set up the boardroom," he said. "Give her everything she needs." Then he turned back to Sophia. "Time is short. What do you want in return?" Sophia looked at the documents, then back at him. "You offered your salary," she said. 45,000 raise. I'm here to collect it. And if the response requires more than translation, we'll discuss a formal arrangement after the deadline." Paolo let out a tiny sound that might have been a protest, but no one joined him. Laura was already moving, keys in hand, voice brisk as she spoke to facilities over the phone. "Prepare the executive boardroom," she said. "Computer, secure connection, and, yes, no interruptions." Victor studied Sophia for a long second. "You understand," he said, "that if this is a scam, I'm throwing away an afternoon and a lot of money." Sophia met his gaze without blinking. "Then we verify," she said. "We confirm sender identity, check seals and registry numbers, contact the firm in Budapest and log the call. If it's false, we have evidence of due diligence. If it's real, you meet the deadline and protect your inheritance." Laura returned with a badge and a key card. She handed them to Sophia with a small, sincere smile. "This will get you past security," she said. "I'll walk you up." Sophia nodded once, then addressed Victor. "If you want this done right," she said, "you cannot stand over my shoulder. Wait for my update at 4:15. Victor glanced at the wall clock. "Fine," he said. 4:15. As they moved toward the elevators, the crowd parted. The looks that followed Sophia were different now. Less dismissive, more uncertain. The rubber gloves in her pocket slapped lightly against her hip. He felt the afternoon tilt on its axis. Deadlines pressed at his throat. Hard. The elevator doors opened. Laura gestured inside. "This way," she said. And for the first time since the morning began, Victor realized he was no longer directing the day. He was following it. The boardroom door closed with a soft click. Sophia walked straight to the head of the table, pulled the documents from her bag and began scanning them line by line. The light from the large windows fell across her face as her eyes moved quickly, her lips tightening at certain passages. Laura set a laptop in front of her. "It's connected to the secure network," she said, placing a notepad and pen beside it. "Do you need anything else?" Sophia didn't look up. "A phone with international calling, if possible," she said, "and please make sure no one interrupts." Laura nodded. "I'll guard the door myself." Minutes turned into nearly 2 hours. Sophia typed steadily, occasionally pausing to check terms in legal databases. She made one short call in Hungarian, speaking in a tone so calm it felt almost cold. At exactly 4:15 she stood, gathered the pages she had printed and walked out into the corridor. Victor was pacing in reception, one hand in his pocket, the other running over his face again and again. When he saw her, he stopped. "Well?" he asked. She placed the folder in his hands. "Complete translation," she said. "Draft of your acceptance letter, power of attorney for your lawyers, and instructions for express courier delivery." Victor opened the folder and skimmed the first page. His eyes jumped between lines, stopping on the precise formatting and detailed footnotes. "You explained the legal terms," he said, half to himself, "even the obscure ones." "I explained them for you and for your legal team," she answered. "If you send this without understanding it, you could create problems later." He looked at her for a moment, then said, "You're remarkable." Sophia didn't smile. "You offered your salary," she said. 45,000 raise. I am here to collect." Victor gave a small, almost reluctant nod. "You'll get it," he said. Then, after a pause, "I have another proposal. Stay with the company as a translation consultant. 10,000 reais a month, full benefits." Her eyes stayed on his. "I'll think about it," she said, "but I appreciate the offer." He gestured toward the documents. "We'll send these now." Sophia held her ground. "You will send them," she said, "but I have a few more conditions if I take your offer. A formal contract with my role and responsibilities in writing, and if I accept, I will start part-time for 2 weeks so I can train my replacement in cleaning. I won't leave the team in trouble." Victor seemed almost caught off guard by her insistence. "Fair enough," he said. She added, "And any payment for my daughter's treatment goes directly to the clinic's account. I don't take risks with that." He didn't argue. "Done," he said. Laura stepped forward, holding a courier envelope. "If we get this out in the next 15 minutes, it will make the flight," she said. Victor slipped the documents inside and sealed it. "I'll take it myself," he said, turning toward the door. Sophia followed him with her eyes. "Go quickly," she said. "Deadlines in Europe are not flexible." Victor glanced back as if realizing that her word carried weight. "Understood," he said before striding out. The rest of the staff watched as Sophia returned to the boardroom and, for the first time, sat at the table, without being told she was in the wrong place. She opened the laptop again, not to work, but to check the clinic's payment details. Outside, she could hear the faint hum of conversation. The laughter from earlier was gone. When she finally closed the lid, the clock read 5:22. The room felt different now, less like a place she wasn't supposed to be, more like one she could claim. And just as the sun began to drop behind the skyline, the phone on the corner of the table rang. Laura's voice came through the intercom. "There's a call for you and Mr. Almeida," she said. "It's from Hungary. They say it's urgent." Victor came back into the boardroom just as Sophia picked up the call. He stood near the table, eyes fixed on her as she switched from English to Hungarian mid-sentence. The words flowed fast and sharp. After a few minutes, she ended the call and set the receiver down with deliberate care. "We have a problem," she said, looking directly at him. Victor stepped closer. "What kind of problem?" Sophia's tone stayed measured. "The inheritance is being contested. 2 cousins and a woman claiming to have been in a common-law relationship with your uncle have filed claims. They're arguing for their share of the estate." Victor exhaled hard. "I thought this was settled." "Not entirely," she replied. "A hearing has been scheduled in Budapest. 2 days from now, if you don't appear, you forfeit everything for abandoning the process." He rubbed his forehead. 2 days? I don't even have a passport." "We can arrange an emergency passport tomorrow morning," she said. "Flights are possible the same night. I will handle the legal preparation, but I need to know if you intend to fight." Victor didn't answer immediately. He looked at her as though measuring something beyond her words. "If I go, I'm not going alone," he said finally. "Will you come?" "Yes," she said without hesitation, "but with one condition." He straightened. "Name it." "I want 5% of whatever portion of the inheritance you keep," she said. That's the standard fee for international legal consultants in these cases. Victor stared at her, the math working in his head. 5% of 15 million euros, he muttered, then, almost under his breath, nearly 1 million reais. Sophia waited without flinching. You'll still be far ahead compared to losing everything. He gave a short, resigned laugh. Fine. Deal. Laura, who had been hovering near the doorway, stepped in. I'll start arranging your passport, she said to Victor. Then, turning to Sophia, what do you need from us? Airline reservations tonight, hotel in Budapest close to the court, and coordination with local council, she said. I'll contact an attorney I trust there. Victor gestured toward the door. Let's move. The office shifted into a different kind of motion. Laura was on the phone to the passport agency before she even reached her desk. Paolo was instructed to prepare a corporate authorization for international representation. Amanda from finance started securing travel funds. Sophia called Budapest, her voice in Hungarian brisk and authoritative. When she hung up, she told Victor, We'll be met at the airport by Andras Kovac, a senior attorney I've worked with. He already knows the case. Victor nodded, but there was tension in his jaw. This is moving fast. That's the only way we win, she said. By the end of the day, documents were signed, identification gathered, and itineraries printed. Victor's passport appointment was set for early morning. Flights to Hungary were confirmed. As they left the building together, Victor broke the silence. I don't think I've ever seen this place run like that, he said. That's what happens when time matters, she replied. They stopped by the curb as his car pulled up. He opened the door, then paused. I owe you more than a salary, he said. Sophia shook her head. Right now you owe me a seat on that plane and the percentage we agreed on. We'll discuss gratitude later. Victor gave a faint, almost rueful smile and got into the car. As it pulled away, Sophia stood watching for a moment before turning toward the bus stop. The night air felt sharper than usual, carrying the weight of a trip that could alter both of their lives. By morning, they would be in motion toward Europe. With 2 days to prepare for a courtroom battle neither of them could afford to lose. And in that narrow window, every decision would matter. The passport office smelled faintly of paper and disinfectant. Victor shifted impatiently in the hard plastic chair while Sophia stood at the counter, calmly handing over the documents. She spoke to the clerk with the same composed precision she used in the boardroom, making sure nothing was missed. When the clerk disappeared into the back, Victor leaned closer. You've done this before, he said quietly. Emergency documentation? She asked, keeping her eyes on the counter. Yes, twice when I worked for the consulate. Both times were for people who thought deadlines didn't apply to them. He gave a short, humorless laugh. Sounds familiar. By midday, the passport was in Victor's hands. From there, the day blurred into a sequence of tasks. Amanda confirmed hotel reservations in Budapest. Paolo secured the authorization papers. Sophia kept calling Budapest, her voice switching between Hungarian and Portuguese without hesitation. On the drive to the airport, Victor glanced at her as she reviewed notes on her tablet. Do you always prepare like this? He asked. Yes, she replied, eyes still on the screen. Preparation is the difference between walking into a courtroom with a plan and walking in with hope. He studied her profile for a moment. You don't seem nervous. Sophia finally looked at him. I've been in rooms where people's freedom depended on my translation, she said. This is just money. They boarded the overnight flight under the pale lights of the terminal. Once in their seats, Victor reclined slightly, trying to relax. The engines roared, and the plane lifted into the dark. A few hours later, most passengers were asleep. Victor shifted in his seat, restless. I still can't believe you were here all this time, he said quietly, cleaning floors. You never looked closely enough to see more, she answered, still reading through a thick file. The courthouse in Budapest was an imposing block of stone, its high windows reflecting the pale morning light. Inside, the air smelled faintly of old paper and polished wood. Victor adjusted his tie for the third time as they walked through the echoing hallways. Sophia carried a slim folder under her arm, her expression unreadable. In the courtroom, 3 judges sat at the central bench, their black robes crisp against the carved wood backdrop. On the opposite side, 2 men and a woman waited with their lawyers. The woman's dark hair was pulled back tight, her gaze fixed on Victor with an edge of accusation. The cousins looked bored, almost smug. When the proceedings began, the opposing lawyer rose first, speaking in Hungarian. Sophia leaned slightly toward Victor and whispered the translation. "They are claiming your uncle was manipulated, that he was in poor health and vulnerable, and that you only appeared to take advantage after his death." Victor shook his head but said nothing. The lawyer continued, now turning toward the judges. Sophia's voice stayed even in the translation. "They say the woman Esther cared for him daily, and the cousins have lifelong family ties. They argue the will should be voided." When it was their turn, Andras stood. His voice was calm, deliberate. He laid out the legal facts. The will was dated, notarized and filed according to Hungarian law. There was no evidence of coercion. Then Sophia called the first witness, the doctor. A middle-aged man in a grey suit took the stand. Speaking in Hungarian, he told the court, "Mr. Henrique was fully lucid during our last consultations. He specifically told me he wanted his nephew in Brazil to inherit everything." The second witness, the housekeeper, shifted nervously before speaking. "I often wrote letters for him," she said. "He spoke of Brazil with warmth. He asked me to tell his nephew about the family history." One neighbor confirmed she had never seen Esther until the final weeks of Henrique's life. Another said he had heard Henrique talking about changing his will in favor of the nephew. Sophia then placed the incomplete letter on the evidence table. Andras explained its origin, and Sophia read aloud in Hungarian. The quiet in the room deepened as her voice carried the words, "I have always thought of you. I want to leave you what I built because you are my blood." Victor felt the back of his throat tighten. When the judges adjourned for deliberation, Victor turned to her. "Do you think we've done enough?" he asked. She met his eyes without hesitation. "Yes, trust the evidence and trust me." The hour they waited stretched endlessly. Victor paced near the bench, stopping occasionally to glance toward the door. Sophia sat still, hands folded, watching the light shift through the tall windows. Finally, the judges returned. The presiding judge spoke in Hungarian, and Sophia translated as he went on. "The court recognizes the legitimacy of the will filed by Mr. Henrique Almeida. The claims of Esther Kovac and Bela and Mirali Almeida are dismissed. Mr. Victor Almeida is declared the sole legal heir to the estate." Victor sank back into his chair, exhaling hard. "We did it," he said. Sophia placed a hand briefly over his. "You did it by showing up," she said. "The rest was just proving the truth." As they walked out of the courthouse into the cool afternoon air, Victor stopped on the steps and looked at her. "Without you, I would have lost everything," he said. Sophia answered in the same steady tone she had used all along. "You didn't lose because you listened when it mattered." The city around them moved in its usual rhythm, but for the two of them the pace had shifted. The flight home would carry more than documents now. It would carry the weight of a promise kept and a partnership neither had expected. "That's fair," he admitted. "But I'm looking now." She didn't respond, and the hum of the engines filled the space between them. They landed in Budapest under a grey autumn sky. A tall man in a wool coat was waiting at the arrivals gate. "Andras Kovac," he said, extending his hand to Victor before turning to Sophia with a small smile. "It's been too long." "Not long enough for me to forget how you work," she said warmly. "Thank you for meeting us." As they drove toward the hotel, Andras explained the situation. "The opposing parties have strong representation. They claim your uncle was manipulated into changing his will. They'll bring up his health, his relationships, even try to invalidate the signature." Victor frowned. "How do we counter that?" Sophia answered before Andras could. "We have the most recent will, and we'll collect testimony from people who saw your uncle in those final months. We'll also present a letter he was writing to you." Andras nodded in agreement. "The letter is incomplete but emotionally powerful. Judges respond to authenticity." That afternoon they visited the Central Registry, a building of marble columns and echoing corridors. Sophia moved with certainty, requesting documents in Hungarian, confirming seals and signatures. Within 2 hours they had copies of 3 wills. The last one, dated just months before Henrique's death, left everything to Victor. In a small archive room, Sophia found the letter. The handwriting was careful, the words deliberate. "Dear nephew Victor," it began, "I know you don't even know I exist, but I have always thought of you. I want to leave you what I built, because you are my blood." Victor stared at the page, silent. Back at the hotel, Sophia spread the documents across the table. "Tomorrow," she said, "we meet with the doctor, the housekeeper, and 2 neighbors. They will testify that your uncle spoke of you often." Victor glanced at the neat stacks of paper. "And if they don't show up?" "Then we adapt," she replied. "But they'll be there," I asked. The clock on the bedside table read just past midnight. Outside, the streets of Budapest were quiet. Tomorrow the pace would change again. The plane touched down in São Paulo under a heavy afternoon sky. Victor stepped off first, carrying the folder of court-certified documents like it was made of glass. Sophia followed, her expression calm but her eyes scanning every sign, every face, as though the work wasn't quite finished until the papers were safe. Back at the office the next day, Victor walked into the executive floor with Sophia beside him. Staff glanced up from their desks, whispers starting instantly. He stopped near the reception and addressed Laura. "Call a meeting," he said. "Everyone. 10 minutes." In the conference room, the air was thick with curiosity. Employees filled the seats, some standing along the walls. Victor stood at the head of the table, Sophia to his right. "2 years ago," Victor began, "I treated one of the most capable people I've ever met, as though she was invisible. I made jokes at her expense. I ignored her presence. That was my mistake." He glanced at Sophia before continuing. "Last week she saved me from losing a fortune. She handled negotiations in another country, in another language, and she did it with a professionalism this company should be proud of. From today, Sophia Santos is our Director of International Relations. She will lead a new department for cross-border estates and successions." The room erupted in applause. Mariana from HR stood and clapped, her voice warm as she said, "It will be a privilege to work with you." Victor raised a hand for silence. "And one more thing. 15% of our annual profits will now be distributed among all employees, and we're creating a scholarship fund for the children of our staff. This decision was inspired by what I saw in Budapest, the value of seeing people for who they truly are." For a moment, the applause didn't stop. A few people wiped at their eyes. That evening, in the quieter light of her apartment, Sophia sat at the kitchen table while her daughter, Marina, scrolled through her phone. "You made the news," Marina said, tilting the screen toward her. A photo from the company meeting showed Sophia standing beside Victor, the caption calling her the woman who saved millions. Sophia smiled faintly. "It wasn't just about the money," she said. 2 months later, Marina received her acceptance letter to medical school at the University of São Paulo. The morning the results came in, she ran to her mother's room, waving the printed email. "First place," she said, almost breathless. Sophia hugged her tightly. "You earned it," she said. The company celebrated the news as if it were their own victory. At the next staff meeting, Mariana mentioned it with pride, and the room burst into cheers. In the days that followed, Sophia's office began to fill with folders in multiple languages. She took calls in Spanish, French, and Hungarian, each time switching seamlessly. Victor often stopped by, leaning on the doorway. "How do you do that?" he asked once, watching her jot notes in 3 different scripts. "It's like changing channels," she said without looking up. "The picture's different, but the story keeps going." One late afternoon, Victor stepped into her office holding an envelope. "This came for both of us," he said. She took it, opened it carefully, and read aloud. "The government of Hungary is pleased to grant honorary citizenship to Mr. Victor Almeida and Ms. Sophia Santos in recognition of their exemplary cooperation in an international legal matter." Her voice caught slightly on the last words. "I never imagined my dignity would be recognized like this," she said quietly. Victor leaned on the edge of her desk. "It was your dignity," he said, "that taught mine how to exist. The room was silent for a beat. Outside the glass walls, the office hummed with routine tasks, but in that moment, Sophia knew something had shifted for good. The chapter of invisibility had closed. What lay ahead was hers to define. The ceremony in Budapest took place in a modest but dignified hall inside the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The walls were lined with portraits of past diplomats, and a long table at the front held the official documents. Sophia and Victor stood side by side as a senior official stepped forward. "In recognition of your cooperation, integrity, and commitment to justice," the official said in English, "we grant you both honorary citizenship of Hungary." He handed them each a certificate embossed with gold seals. Victor accepted his with a polite nod. Sophia took hers with both hands, her gaze lingering on the coat of arms. She said quietly to the official, "Thank you. This means more than I can put into words." After the applause, they stepped outside into the crisp winter air. Snow had begun to fall lightly over the cobblestone streets. Victor glanced at her. "You know," he said, "a few months ago I would have walked past you without noticing. Now, I can't imagine running this company without you." Sophia looked out toward the Parliament building in the distance. "People don't change just because they say they will," she said. "They change when they start seeing things differently." Back in São Paulo a week later, the company's scholarship fund was officially launched. The event drew the entire staff, their families, and a few journalists. In the main hall, Victor addressed the crowd. "This isn't just about money," he told them. "It's about giving people the tools to use their talents no matter where they start." After the speeches, children played between the rows of chairs. Marina stayed close to her mother, shaking hands with colleagues who congratulated her on her medical school admission. Mariana from HR pulled Sophia aside. "You know you've changed the culture here," Mariana said. "People are looking at each other differently." Sophia smiled. "That's the real victory," she said. In the months that followed, Sophia's role expanded beyond what she had imagined. She negotiated contracts in 3 continents, settled disputes in multiple jurisdictions, and built a small team of multilingual specialists. Her office wall filled with maps dotted with pins marking ongoing cases. One evening, as the sun set over the city, Victor knocked on her open door. "Got a minute?" he asked. She gestured to the chair opposite her desk. "Always." He sat down, holding a small box. "It's not a bonus, and it's not a formal award," he said, placing it in front of her. She opened it to find an antique fountain pen with an inscription on the barrel, "For the words that changed everything." She ran her fingers lightly over the metal. "You didn't have to," she said. "I wanted to," he replied, "because I know the turning point wasn't in Budapest or in court. It was the moment you stood in reception and told me you could translate those papers. Everything started there." For a moment, the noise of the office outside faded. She closed the box and looked at him. "It's strange," she said. "I didn't plan to speak that day. I'd stood there and listened to you so many times, but something made me step forward." "Whatever it was," he said. "I'm glad you did." By the time Victor left her office, the city lights had come on. Sophia sat back, the pen still in front of her. Outside her window, traffic moved steadily, each car a small story in motion. She thought of the path from a navy uniform and rubber gloves to this desk overlooking the skyline. The work ahead was vast, but she no longer doubted her place in it. In the end, the most important inheritance had not been the 15 million euros. It was the change in how people saw her and how they saw each other, and that, she knew, was something no court could contest.